信じられない。それが真相だというのかい？
はい。私たちは見たままのことをお話ししています。
George folded his arms and started mumbling again, and the kitchen was once again wrapped in a long silence.
ジョージ様がにわかには信じられない気持ちも私はよくわかります。何しろこの目で確かに見たはずの私ですらあれが何だったのかわからなくなる。私は確かに見た。そして取っ組み合いまでしたはずなんです。なのにあれが全部幻だったような気すらする。
なるほどね。あのローザおばさんに詳しく話せないわけだ。今の話を本当にしてたらもっと面倒なトラブルになっていただろうね。なるほど。源氏さんが随分冷静な対応をしていたのが分かりました。
私にそれを説明するだけの力があればよかったのですが。
George had not actually seen it, and even when pressed to believe, he just couldn't imagine it. It was only natural, because even the people who had actually seen it had given up asking themselves what it was.
話を少し巻き戻すよ。シャノンはカノン君が偽物かもしれないと思った時、クモの巣を取ってきたと言ったね。どうしてそんなことを？
そうだ、それは私も思っていました。どうしてクモの巣だったんです？
前に熊沢さんに聞いたことがあるんです。大昔の六軒島には悪霊が住んでいて、そのクモの巣を恐れたって。それでクモの巣を魔除けと尊んで大切にしたという昔話があるんだそうです。それでそのとっさに私も少し混乱していたんだと思います。
そんな話が。熊沢はそういう昔話に詳しかったな。
クモは液中ですからね。確かにそういう信仰があってもおかしくないかもしれない。
きっとその悪霊の力をあの鳥居の祠が封じ込めてたんだと思います。そして霊境が割られたので、その力が蘇ってベアトリーチ様を蘇らせる力となってしまったに違いないのです。私が、心の弱かった私があんな大それたことをしなければ。
シャノン、その話はもうしなくても大丈夫だよ。僕は君を責めたりなんかしない。
Since long ago, Shannon had struggled that there was some kind of occult cause for her meeting with George. After listening to her, George had grown to think that she was being a typical girl associating love with fate, chance, and miracles. He did think that smashing the third mirror offered at the Torii shrine was taking it a bit far, but he'd laughed it off and forgiven her, thinking that it was a prank that showed how serious she was about her relationship with him. Just breaking a mirror in some musty shrine wouldn't have changed the fate of our meeting, and it would never cause any curse. He tried to cheer her up, saying it was only a musty mirror covered in dust.
ベアトリーチェ様という霊のような存在がいるという話は、この島に勤めるようになってからたくさんの同僚に聞かされました。最初はバカバカしいと思っていましたが、それを批判するとなんだか不謹慎そうな空気があったもので、私も表向きは信じているように振る舞っていきました。しかしまさか本当に
いたんです。ベアトリーチェ様はずっとこのお屋敷におられたんです。でもベアトリーチェ様は力を失っておられて、私たちの前に姿を現すことができなかったんです。ずっといた。私たちが見えなかっただけなんです。
源氏さんの意見を聞きたいです。
私には何も意見はありません。一つだけ申し上げたいのは、私たちはあの時ここに5人いた。そしてカノンが勝手口から帰ってきたと思った。そして使用人室に運び、何かが起こって南條先生と熊沢が帰らぬ人となってしまった。それだけです。私たちは見たものをすでに全て説明しました。それを見ていないジョージ様に信じろというのはとても無理な話だと理解しています。
信じられるわけがない。あれは間違いなくカノンさんだと思った。でもあいつがベッドから起き上がって、そうこんな風にしながら胸の傷をまさぐり始めた時、こいつはカノンさんじゃない、誰か別の存在なんだと直感しました。ジョージ様にはわからないでしょう。よく知っていると思っていた人物が実は別人であることをさらけ出した瞬間の恐ろしさというものは説明できない。とても説明できるわけがない。
わかるよ。郷田さんがそれほどまでにショックを受けるどんな恐ろしいことがあったのか、僕は
ありがとうございます、ジョージ様。
Apparently they all fell silent again. Shannon kept crying no matter how many times she was consoled, thinking that listening to the witch's sweet whispers and breaking the third mirror on that day had been a mistake that was ruined everything.
君に囁いたという魔女は、その鏡があると力を失うんだね。
少し説明してくれた気がしますが、よく覚えていません。あの鏡があると力が出せないというようなことを言っていたと思います。
君が割ったというその鏡はどうしたの？
覚えていません。多分割ったまま立ち去りましたから、そのままそこに残ってたでしょう。
ということは、岩礁が雷で撃たれて消えたとかいう時に海の底か。まあ拾って接着剤で貼り付けたところでご利益は戻らないだろうけどね。
私は本当になんてことを。
ごめん、失言したよ。
He didn't know if Shannon breaking the mirror had really started all this off. The other servants didn't blame Shannon, they all seemed to believe that her actions had been the root cause. But even now, George wasn't able to go that far. All this talking about witches and evil spirits just sounded fake to him, even though he was trying to be open-minded. Even so, he listened seriously to Shannon's story, trying to find a hint that might relieve at least a little bit of pain in the heart.
そういえばその鳥居にあったものとは違うでしょうが、奥様がお守りとして霊鏡をお持ちになっていると聞いたことがあります。
夏日おばさんが？
はい、おじい様の形見分けか何かでもらったものだそうで、とても強い魔除けの力を持つ由緒正しい霊鏡だとかなんとか。
同じ話は私も聞いたことがある。鏡は良くないものを反射して弾き返す力があるのだとか。
その霊鏡があれば魔女のベアトリーチェに対抗できるかな？
When George proposed this, the servants looked up.
祀っていた鳥居と祠はもうないかもしれないけれど、霊鏡がもう一枚あるのは重要なことだよ。夏日おばさんの実家は神職にも通じていると聞いたことがある。それは本当に単なる鏡ではないかもしれない。
確か奥様は 宝物箱に入れて大事にしまっていると、そんなに大きいものではないのかもしれません。
大きさの問題ではなかったと思います。私が割った鏡も一見大したことのない小さな鏡に見えました。
相手がオカルトならこちらもオカルトの手段で対抗するしかない。ただこうして座っていても何も解決しない、単なる気休めだとしてもやってみる価値はあるよ。
Of course, it didn't mean George had accepted the witch. However, he thought it'd be necessary to have some kind of purification ceremony to heal the wounds in Shannon's heart. So the story about Natsui's spirit mirror was really convenient.
行こう。魔女をやっつけようなんて大それたことは言わないよ。でも魔女から身を守る魔除けがあってもいいと思う。前にマリアちゃんに聞いたんだけど、おじい様の部屋の扉は強力な魔除けが施されているんでしょ。さすがおじい様だね。オカルトに対する防御も十分だったわけだ。行こう、夏日おばさんの部屋へ。
しかし奥様の部屋には鍵がかかっていると思います。マスターキーはローザ様にお返ししてしまいましたし、キーボックスのある使用人室も施錠されてしまいましたし。
ならばその鍵は夏日おばさんが持ち歩いているはず。礼拝堂にはまだ夏日おばさんの遺体があるはずだ。警察が来る前に勝手にいじってしまうのは悪いことだけれど、それについてはちゃんと説明しよ
う。しかし礼拝堂の入り口も鍵がかけられております。
ゴーダさんの腕力じゃガラス1枚割れないのかい。その辺の石で叩き割ればいい。
But the witch said that wouldn't work.
大切な礼拝堂の窓を破ってしまってもよろしいのでしょうか。
おじい様に怒られるときは僕が責任を持つよ。僕はもともと今日後宮家の全員と戦うつもりでいた。君との婚約を許してもらうためにね。だから元よりその覚悟はある。ガラスを割ろう。そして夏日おばさんの遺体から鍵を借りよう。
George's announcement that he'd take responsibility seemed to have given the servants a great deal of courage. Shannon and Goda looked at each other and then looked at George's face again.
オカルトに詳しいおじい様だもの。夏日おばさんの霊境の力だってきっと理解してくれる。大丈夫。怒られたりなんかしない。
奥様の鏡で本当にベアトリーチェ様をもう一度封じることができるでしょうか。
わからない。でも試す価値はあると思う。なら行こう。表はどんどん暗くなっちゃうよ。急ごう。シャノンは懐中電灯を、ゴーダさんはガラスを割れそうな道具を、ゲンジさんはすみません、傘の用意をお願いします。
はい。
The servants who had been rejected by Rosa gained a new master and started to move. George, who was normally calm and gentle, was now radiating dignity. Shannon checked the emergency flashlight, just in case she changed the batteries. Goda was testing several heavy-looking cooking tools. Normally, a high-praised chef like him wouldn't use something other than the intended purpose, but now he was frantic to fill the orders of the one who he accepted as his master. After unwearing, he took a large, thick-looking, peeling frying pan. Genji removed several umbrellas from the umbrella stand and set them near the corner near the kitchen door. He took 3 of them.
ゲンジさん、
私はご一緒できません。ご用命の時に全員がいないようなことがあっては後ろ宮家使用人頭として恥ずかしいことです。
そんな源氏さん、今のこの屋敷で一人でいることがどれだけ危険かあなたもわかるでしょう。
私はいいけど、親方様からいつお呼び出しがあってもいいように私はここにいなくて。
源氏様、
言ってジョージ様にお仕えするようくれぐれも粗相のないように。 だ。手本となるようよろしく頼む。
はい、お任せください。
必ずやお役目を果たします。
本当にいいんですね、ケンジさん。
はい、私はもうこの年です。今日までの人生は全て親方様に受けたご恩をお返しするための日々でした。このような老いぼれがどうなろうと、全てはルーレットの飯だ。私はどのような結果が出るのかをここに座って見届けたいと思います。
As Genji said that he sat down, as though saying he didn't intend to discuss this anymore, his gaze fell on the chessboard he played Nanja on. While George saw this, he decided to leave Genji there.
行こう、みんな。今は少し風もおとなしいみたいだ。
When George took an umbrella and dashed down the hallway, Shannon and Goda chased after him, each holding a tool. After they flew up the room, Genji quietly stretched his hand out to the side of the chessboard. He softly pulled something there towards him, covering it with his palm. Genji killed his breathing even more than before. As he did, something flashed gold. From inside an ice pail set on the counter, a small golden butterfly appeared softly and silently. It's almost as though it had seen George and the rest off and was trying to secretly chase after them. It happened in an instant. The elegant gold butterfly flapping its wings was pinned against the wall by a knife Genji threw, just like a butterfly in a bug collection. After the gold butterfly beat its wings several times, looking like it was in pain, it accepted the fact it couldn't break free, became fine gold powder and smoke, and disappeared as though it had melted into water. Genji still gazed down at the chessboard as though nothing had happened. Maybe he would think up a brilliant move very soon. But no matter what move he made, his opponent would not be able to respond for all eternity. Even though he knew that, Genji searched for a brilliant move. It must have been the perfect way to kill time during the short period before some fate would be given to him. He didn't know what result the roulette would bring about, but the decision would be made very soon. No one could interfere with the tumbling roulette ball. The door to the parlour was not only locked, but blocked with a barricade made of sofas and the like. Because of that, Aunt Rosa seemed to suspect that any suspicious person approaching would break through a window. Sitting on a one-person sofa, her back to the door, she continued to hold onto her gun. I didn't know what was what anymore, and even though my body and mind were worn out, I played with Mario as she wanted. Mario had said it. Beatrice was testing us to see if we could solve the aperture of the gold, so we were trying to figure out this riddle. In the beginning, I was a little interested and tried to solve it, but I didn't even have a clue where to start in this weird text. I didn't doubt that there was some kind of riddle there, but I seriously doubted I'd be able to suddenly leap to an answer. In the middle part of the aperture, there were lines going from the first to the 10th twilight, telling us the journey to the Golden Land. On the first twilight, of the 6 chosen by the key as sacrifices. On the second twilight, those who remained shall tear apart the 2 who were close. It's obvious this hinted that the first 6 murders that had already occurred in the chapel, and Jessica and Canon's murders. If this was being followed, we still had to prepare for 5 more people to be killed. On the 4th twilight, gouge your head and kill. On the 5th twilight, gouge the chest and kill. On the 6th twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the 7th twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the 8th twilight, gouge the leg and kill. Dr. Nanjo and Dr. Kumasawa's corpses hadn't been found. However, if this follows the pattern and their sacrifices for the 4th and 5th twilights, they'll surely be found in a pitiful state with their head and chests gouged. spoken, we can expect that 3 more of us will be gouged in the stomach, knee, and leg and killed. Who will it be? I looked around the room, noticing there were 3 people in here, but how should I put it? My emotions seemed paralyzed. Strangely, I didn't feel frightened. As I leaned against the sofa with the top part of my body gazing up at the ceiling, Maria noticed. Apparently, she felt like I was slacking off on my riddle solving. She got mad at me for not taking this seriously enough.
なあ、マリア。ベアトリーチェは確か、これを解いたらどうするって言ってたんだっけ？
I'm sure the witch wrote in her letter that she's going to give up on collecting interest or something abstract like that. I automatically took that she meant to mean she'd give up on killing the whole family, but it was really written that with that meaning. For some reason, I couldn't convince myself that solving the riddle would really save me. I feel like maybe, even if we do solve it, we'll just be doing what the culprit wants and will all be a wasted effort.
そんなことはない。この碑文が解けたら、ベアとの儀式はおしまいになる。だからもうそれ以上、誰も死ななくなる。本当にか？そういうルールを奴が提示してるだけだろ。この謎を解けば、多分、じいさまの隠し黄金のありかがわかるんだろ。奴は、きっとそれを狙って。おお、狙わないよ。なんでそう断言できるんだよ。黄金は最初からベアトのものだもん。自分のものを狙ったりなんかしない。じゃあ、どうしてベアトは俺たちにこんな大ヒントを授けてくれたんだ？というか、どうしてこんなゲームじみたことを仕掛けてきたんだ？魔法にはリスクが必要なの。リスク？よく意味がわかんねえな。例えばマラソン。完走すれば誰でももらえるメダルと、一番になった人しかもらえないメダルって同じ価値だと思う？思わねえぜ。つまりなんだよ。わざとこっちにチャンスを与えるようなことをして。違う。それがね、魔法というものなの。どんな大きな魔法にも絶対にリスクや弱点があるの。ないといけないの。魔法って言われるとピンとこねえが、ギャンブルだって考えれば少しは理解できるな。でかく失う覚悟がなきゃ、でかくは勝てない。そして、勝ち目の薄いギャンブルであればあるほど、配当はでかくなる。その通りだよ。だからベアトは儀式のリスクをちゃんとみんなに説明したの。だからこの謎を解けばちゃんと儀式は中断される。だってそれを約束違反したらリスクにならない。これを解けば、奴は本当に約束を守るのか？花は枯れるのにどうして美しいの？造花は見分けがつかないほど精巧でもどうして美しくないの？人間は死を賭すから奇跡が起こせる。不死の人間がいたとしてその人物に何の奇跡も起こせる道理はない。私たちも人生も魔女も儀式も、私たちはリスクを負わなければ何も成し遂げられないの。謎が解けたらどうするんだ？ピンポーンって鳴らして挙手して、回答を魔女に伝えて答え合わせをするのか？それは知らない。でも解けばきっと自動的に儀式は終わる。マリアは詳しいな。そいつはみんなベアトリーチェに習ったのか？
So, if you don't bear a risk, nothing can be gained, is that it? That definitely is the way around the world, but it's sort of in conflict with the chessboard thinking I like so much. Even when making moves in chess, players grope around for the best move, always trying to avoid risk and hoping for an advantageous turn of events. they don't trust to chance, like in gambling. That's right, there's no room for gambling in an intellectual game. And yet, this person called Beatrice has created such an outrageous crime, or maybe a ceremony, while purposefully imposing conditions for her loss and announcing them to us. In chess, you always play your best move, though putting yourself in your opponent's position, you can predict their next move. However, we can't be sure that Beatrice's moves are actually her best moves possible. I thought she was probably making us focus on the appetite to fool us in some way, speaking in riddles, but according to Maria, that alone was impossible. She said this was a genuine risk that the witch had taken, and therefore proof that this was a formal ceremony for magic. I can't understand why this witch called Beatrice, if she's committing this chain of murders with some goal in mind, why'd she go over trouble exposing conditions for her defeat? No matter how I spin the chessboard around and think from my opponent's perspective, I can't understand why she'd give up if this riddle is solved. Isn't it almost though Beatrice doesn't care whether she wins or loses? Of course chessboard reasoning doesn't work against an opponent like that. I don't understand. What is Beatrice after that is making her carry out this crime? If she just wanted to massacre all of us, she could have done it quietly without this whole crazy setup. There's no need for that kind-hearted advance notice, or this self-aware closed room stuff, any of that to exist. It's just all overacting. I've got no clue what it means. Will I be unable to understand everything as long as I keep thinking of Beatrice as a greedy human culprit? I don't understand her as a witch. Will my chessboard thinking be stuck before I've even lined up the pieces? If she really is a witch and everything Mario said was true, then there's only one thing for us to do. The theory building and discord of searching for the culprit has all been pointless. We should have all gathered in the dining hall, combining our knowledge to solve the riddle. By combining the knowledge of that many people, we might have been able to grasp at least a thread of the answer. The greedy humans, each desiring to gain something over their opponents, were getting offered up as sacrifices one by one without gathering their knowledge together. In the end, did the humans get what they deserved? They thought they were using their brains, but they were actually only thinking of their greedy selves. In the end, chessboard theory is a thinking technique where you project yourself on your opponent, so greedy people see their greedy selves inside their opponents. I looked lazily at Aunt Rosa. She was probably tired of being under all this tension this whole time. She couldn't sleep, but she was staring vaguely at some position off in space. Aunt Rosa had announced that we couldn't trust anyone who hadn't been killed. Aunt Rosa's chessboard thinking saw herself inside her opponent. In other words, maybe Aunt Rosa was an isolated woman, unable to trust anyone and unable to let her guard down. Long ago I think I heard a bit about it from my dad. Aunt Rosa was originally a very obedient child, but her age was far too separate from the other siblings, and they often made conflicting demands of her during their confrontations. Thanks to this, she'd undergone a lot of psychologically harsh experiences in her youth. Often, when she copied one of her siblings, another sibling would give her a hard time. True, Aunt Rosa said many things today but taken as abusive, but that means those words were once showed upon her, which is why they were engraved on her vocabulary. The many abusive words that she'd spoken were all that which she'd been shown in the past. Now that I think about it, I've got a hard time thinking that her style of speech sometimes has traces of Uncle Kraus and Aunt Eva in it. I understood it as them being similar to their siblings, but maybe it wasn't just that. The first time I truly sympathised with Aunt Rosa, whom I'd always assumed was quiet and gentle. Then what about Maria? Maria's been making certain claim for a while now. If we solve the riddle the witch displaced on us, the ceremony will be halted and will definitely be saved. And I think she just said that Beatrice will never break a promise. But this is Maria we're talking about. She herself never breaks promises, and she must be the most innocent of her heart. Though she believes Beatrice won't break her promises, she's able to believe that. But isn't that just the image of Beatrice in Maria's mind? There's no proof that real Beatrice always keeps her promises, right?
わらわは約束は守る。気分の謎を解けば黄金鏡へ至ることができるだろう。さすれば儀式は終わる。それ以上誰も死にはせぬ。
お前みたいな外道の極みがルールを遵守するってのかよ。
わらわが残忍で卑劣で外道であることを否定はせぬ。だがわらわは魔女だ。魔法を使う。魔法を使うには守らねばならぬルールがある。わらわは魔女だからこそそれをないがしろにできぬのだ。それだけは信じるがよい。
これだけめちゃくちゃやってきて、それでもルールだけは信じろってのかよ。
わらわはたぶらかしはする。もちろん人も騙す。人間と変わらぬ。だが約束として口にしたことを保護にしたことは一度もない。人間はどうか約束を必ず守るのか？
約束を守ろうなんてキャッチフレーズがある以上、ちゃんと履行されてるかどうかは疑わしいな。
わらわから見れば人間の方がよっぽど利己的で外道な存在よ。人間の約束ほど疑わしいものはない。わらわも時に人間と契約するが、くだらない願い一つ叶えるのにどれほど厳重に取り決めをするか想像もつくまい。少しでも隙があると連中はすぐに叶える願いの数を100に増やせとか、小さな豆粒に変身してみろとか言い出す。
親父によく言われたぜ。契約書ほど怖えもんはねえって。よく読まずにハンコを押すやつは骨の髄まで喋られて当然だって言ってたぜ。悪徳で荒稼ぎしてやがったんだな。
察しろ。人は生まれながらに詐欺を知りはせぬ。どこかで被った。だから覚えた。押し付け合わずにはいられぬ人の世の罪か。はて、どこの魔女に聞いたやら。まあいい。そなたが思っているほどわらわも無慈悲ではないぞ。
嘘をつけ、これだけの大勢を。しかもこんな残酷な方法で殺しておいて何が無慈悲ではないだ。約束は守るだと？いい加減なことを言うな。俺はお前を認めない。断じてそれを譲らないことだけがお前への抵抗だと俺は信じてる。
なるほど。永遠の苛波であるのはわらわに対しても同じであるというわけか。かもしれぬな。1000年は長い。魔女の強さは魔力より我慢強さで決まるのかもしれんな。なるほど。ベルン教の恐ろしさもうなずける。
何をわけのわかんねえ話をブツブツ言ってやがる。さっさと永遠の苛波とやらを続けろよ。俺は1000年でも1万年でも付き合う覚悟だぜ。
よいよい。少しは戦う気力も戻ってきたようだな。そうでなければつまらない。ほら、対戦ゲームでもよくあるだろう。乱入したけど相手があまりに弱くて拍子抜けでわざと負けて最終ラウンドまで延長させて最後に本気でフルボッコにすることとかってあるだろう。
例えの意味がわかんねえよ。
ワインと同じよ。よく熟成させねば輝かぬ。 お前はそれに耐えられるワインだ。わらわがじっくり熟成させてやる。そなたをわらわの優雅な時間を彩る最高の美酒に育て上げてやるぞ。だからこの程度で屈服などするな。わらわを引き続き否定してくれよ。何しろわらわはそなたが認めぬ限り儚き幻想に過ぎぬのだから。
何度見ても辛いな。
Okay, so that line about while the door is locked, there's no way to get in or out of the chapel is clearly a lie, or the door is unlocked. Because he's in.
教授、お察しします。シャノンさん、鍵を頼みます。お亡くなりになられたとはいえ、奥様はレディーです。私には触れることができません。
はい。
Shannon nodded sharply, her expression filled with a sense of duty. George, Godo, and Shannon had broken a suitable window and were inside the chapel. Since they hadn't really wanted to break one, they'd searched for another way in just in case, but in the end, proving once again that there's no way they could slip in through, it became more obvious that this chapel was a mysterious closed room. Inside the chapel, time had stopped ever since they had left it. Even George wasn't able to approach that gruesome Halloween party again. It was only natural. It reminded him again of the sadness of losing both parents at once. And Goda, thinking of the possibility that those corpses might have changed in some horrible way, now that half a day has passed, didn't want to let George get near them. Shannon followed Goda's instructions and approached the party table. Normally Shannon might have resented having another dirty job forced on her, but now she could truly understand Goda's mental state. Even though Goda had a prodigious skill, he'd gone dragged into trouble, losing his job and ending up left out in the streets before Natsui gave him a new life. Though it had been just a casual employment decision for Natsui, Goda must have thought it was a turning point in his fate. And those around Goda could see that he felt a special kind of loyalty to Natsui, though he probably didn't want to lose that feeling even after her death. Now that half a day had passed, the bodies of Natsui and the rest had changed completely. Small bugs sniffing out the smell of death had started to gather. It really wasn't something you'd want to look at directly.
奥様、失礼いたします。
Taking the red text very literally, how did the bugs get in? Because the door is still locked, right? Because of her long expression as a servant, Shannon had the idea of which pocket Natsui kept the key in her room. It would probably be this pocket. Her guess didn't fail her. Just touching the outside pocket, she immediately was able to feel it.
ありました。奥様の部屋の鍵です。
Shannon held the key up high, showing the others that it had been found. As George and Goda watched her, their eyes opened wide. That wasn't the expression Shannon was expecting, so it startled her. After all, Shannon hadn't noticed. George and Goda, watching from afar, noticed it first. After all, when Shannon had held her key up high, a bizarre blizzard of gold leaf had seeped up and around the table. There were countless gold butterflies. It was the first time George had seen them, so it might have looked like some kind of illusion. But Goda already knew. He knew those gold butterflies were far from beautiful and that they would bring some kind of misfortune. As that gold swelling trying to suck Shannon in,
シャノンさん、走って。
Shannon also realized the gold butterflies was trying to swallow her up. She ran unsteadily, her expression still shocked, and she did the gold butterflies danced around her all at once. They grouped together, they tried to swallow her up.
シャノン！くそ、なんだこれは。これが君たちの言っていた黄金の蝶なのか。
早く外へ。こいつらめ。くそくそ。
Gerda and George rushed up to Shannon, driving off a cloud of butterflies. While the butterflies were scattered, they ran towards the broken window. However, they needed a good footing to get out the window, which was surrounded by shards of broken glass. When they'd entered, they'd able to have enough time to prepare for that, but there was none.
扉から出よう。足場を探してる時間なんかない。
開かない。硬い。
貸して。くそ、このオンボロが。
ジョージ様、お早く。くそ、なめるな。
Gerda took off his jacket, swinging it around and scattering the group of butterflies. But saying he was outnumbering would be a real understatement. It was doubtful that he even bought in a small amount of time. George struggled with the broken handle. Its age showed and it didn't turn well. I can't leave it to strength. There has to be right angle, or there's some trick to it.
ジョージ様、くそー、この化け物どもが。
At the moment Gerda saw it, he was seen by it. In other words, their eyes met. On top of a party table, no, with a stained glass behind it, floating, laughing, was a figure of a witch. He saw her figure of a laughing witch in the centre of the golden whirlwind, with the gold butterflies fluttering around ever ready.
Beatrice.
It should have been Gerda's first meeting with her, but he knew at her at a glance. Just like the other servants had, this was certainly the witch in the portrait herself.
そろそろ晩餐の時間ではないか。すでにわらわはこの屋敷のホストである。そなたらを素晴らしきディナーで歓待しなくてはならぬというもの。おあつらえ向きに3人ではないか。これは実に好都合。
うわ
あ、開いた。
The door isn't locked.
ゴーダさん、早く。ベアトリーチェ様。
あ、
足を止めてもよいのか。ここがそなたらの墓場にふさわしいというなら、それもよかろうぞ。かつての主の傍らにて死後も仕えたいというその心意気はたたえようぞ。
The golden whirlwind that wrapped around the witch burst. It's like an evil hand that literally spread its fingers and was trying to attack them. The cloud of gold butterflies attacked with a fluttering sound.
急ぐんだ。足を止めちゃいけない。
George's voice brought Shannon and Gerda to their senses. Standing here now would make them like frogs getting stared down by a snake. They had to resist. They had to fight this incarnation of a new, brutal and frightening order which Rokkenjima had been enveloped. There was no time to take out umbrellas. The three of them dashed out in the pouring rain. Three of them never realised because they didn't turn around, but the gold butterflies apparently couldn't handle rain too well. This hampered their ability to chase after the humans. The three people ran from their gold-winged pursuers and flew into a mansion.
愉快。こうでなくては面白くない。
They unlocked the door and dashed into the room. A bit of scent of Natsui's favourite gentle incest remained in there. However, there was no time to let that calm them now.
どこにあるんだ。宝物箱の中って言ったっけ。
話に聞いただけです。実際にどこにあるかまでは。
多分お化粧台かベッドの脇にあるんじゃないかと思います。
Shannon's womanly sensibilities led her to conclude that, but next to the bed there was only an incense burner, a half-read novel and glasses. However, the dresser had... What about that? The dresser had elegant many drawers, and it was understandable that she might keep some valuables there.
夏日おばさん、ごめん。
He began violently opening each one of the drawers. He had to hurry. He couldn't actually hear footsteps, but he had a feeling the witch was approaching. But a feeling her laugh was approaching. He emptied the drawers one by one and examined their contents. Every small box for makeup looked like a treasure box. And the amount of effort it would take to inspect all of them made it feel a little dizzy.
この箱かもしれません。鍵がかかってて開きません。
At a glance, it looked slightly larger than a music box. When shaken, it rustled as though very small objects were inside. But it was locked and didn't open.
普通鍵はすぐ近くに隠しておくものです。あるいは常に身につけている人もいるかも。わからない、わからない。
やむを得ない。壊そう。でも乱暴にはできないね。中の鏡を割ってしまうかもしれない。こじ開ける道具はないから。そう。
Gerda looked over the room, trying to see if there was some tool they could use, and he noticed the door which he'd left open since they'd entered. He approached the door to close it and saw the abominable shadows of people approaching from beyond the darkness in the hall. Now it wasn't shadows of people, because they weren't human at all.
ジョージ様、急いで。
Gerda's voice trailed off. It was the shock of seeing a procession of those not of this world. He was a servant, though he knew all the servants working for the Ushimaya family, but he didn't know any about these. However, they were definitely servants, and not servants working for Ushimaya Kenzo or Ushimaya Kraus. These new servants who worked for new master of mansion, the Golden Witch Beatrice, the goat heads with bright-eyed, boiled eyes of lava. And the new master laughed loudly, trimly directed 6 of the new servants. He saw them approach, piercing the darkness as they came. Of course, she was clad with the gold butterflies that were her symbol. Goldie hurriedly closed the door and locked it. However, just as he locked it, it returned to normal, as though a spring or something had knocked it back. He gave into the illusion that some tracks to beyond the door was unlocking every single time he locked it. They couldn't have reached the other side of the door yet, so who was doing it and how? It almost felt like playing with a broken toy. Click boing. Click boing.
閉まらない。閉めても開いてしまう。どうなってんだこりゃ。クソクソクソクソ。
鍵がわらわを拒むと思うか。その部屋の新しき主をその部屋の扉が拒むと思うのか。
It was like the witch could see Goda's frantic efforts flow through the door. Even now, footsteps continued to approach, and not just their footsteps, but even their breath could be heard. Goda gave up on the door and slammed into the door, locking it with his own large body.
ジョージ様、早く早く早く。
ジョージ様、これはどうでしょう。
レターオープナーか。そっちの方がいいね。貸して。万年筆じゃうまくいかない。
Goda took it and once again dug into the crack under the lid of a treasure box. Looks like it's working.
早く早く。
Pressure from across the door grew stronger. Yoda screamed. It wasn't a war cry during a test of strength. He was terrified. He was simply terrified, but nothing but a single wooden door was stopping him from touching something not of this world. but he was still lucky. He wasn't touching the things directly because they were on the other side of the door. So if he were to touch them directly, Golda's cry would surely turn to something brave, of something brave into pathetic, piercing scream, and therefore one that is more real. Golda couldn't believe what was happening right before his eyes. Coming to the door, an arm was slipping straight through the door, through the wood like it was water, as though it was the most natural thing in the world, and it rubbed the back of Golda's hand as it frankly tried to hold the door shut. It slid up his arm to his chest, and then up his chin to his chin. But now Golda's scream wasn't even audible anymore. He could hear the sweet whispering voice from across the door. It wasn't coming from the witch, it sounded like a young woman. However, that didn't change the fact it came from someone not of this world.
かわいい。ねえ、見てるの相馬と。教えてね。終わったら。ありがとう。もう終わってるのね。
That arm burst. Then they heard the sound of something jumping around the room at incredible speed. They didn't know what it was. Incredibly fast, more like steel or maybe a beetle. When it burrowed itself straight into the center of Golda's chest and stopped. They realized for the first time that its true form was something like a stake or a strange design on it. One moment. That's the fifth. Why did... So Nanjo and Kumasawa were supposed to be fourth and fifth, but Golda was fifth. What's going on? Golda's large body shook, bent backwards, and fell over. As he did, the door opened softly as though no one was pushing it, welcoming the new master of this room. It looked almost as though the door itself had accepted her. The goat attendants came in one after the other, 6 of them. Then the witch came in and gold butterflies came in. The room was wrapped with a blizzard of gold leaf which fell and piled up, turning into more into a world of gold.
Shan, ルーレットはそなたとジョージを選んだ。解放の日に感謝せよ。未練はあるまい？ないよな。惚れた男から婚約指輪をもらって夜も共にしないうちに殺されてしまっても未練なんかないよな。女の幸せを教えてもらいたかったんだろう。ああ、シャーノン、ダメダメ、垂れてるぜ。お前の口元から未練がだらだら垂れてんのが見えるぜ、シャーノン。
It was found that the lid of a treasure box breaking open. When George turned it over, accessory charms, very small objects that naturally is treasured when she was a girl, fell out. Mixing that was a pouch that stood out from the rest. He picked it up and was immediately sure this was it.
見つけた。これだ。
いいって及ばなかったの。死ね。
All at once, the gold butterflies attacked George, who was hurriedly trying to remove the contents of the pouch. At the time, a bright red flash seemed to light up the room in an instant. Red flash seemed to cut a hole a hole in the cloud of gold butterflies raging around the room, drawing a circle of Shannon at the centre. The resulting scene looked truly divine, almost though a single street of light had covered the clouds in this world of gold. George, who was curled up in a ball trying to protect himself from a group of butterflies, hadn't a clue what was going on. And then he noticed Shannon was standing guard in front of him, shielding him. As she was glaring at which the rest of a serious face she'd never shown before.
忘れていた。そなたもまた金蔵の優れた家具だったな。それもカノンよりだいぶ熟成した。
カノン君をよくも殺したことじゃない。よくも亡骸を消し去り、その名誉まで汚そうとしたな。
おやおや、シャーノン、それを怒ってるのか？カノンに会えなくて寂しいならわらわに頼めよ。いつだって会わせてやるというのに。
Which snapped her fingers, one of the 6 ghost attendants glistened in golden change to Canon. He was definitely a sight to make Quorns up or doubt their eyes. It was definitely Canon's face. However, in those eyes, a glint of Canon's integrity was nowhere to be seen. They were hazy eyes of furniture that only obeyed the orders of a witch. George couldn't understand the scene right before his eyes, and he finally understood why Godes and the rest had been able to talk about what they'd seen in the servant room.
楽しいですか？
ああ、楽しいぞ。死が引き裂いた2人を再会させるのはいつだって楽しい。死で引き裂いて1度、合わせて2度、もう一度引き裂いて3度楽しめるのだからな。さあ、カノン、姉と遊んでやりなさい。もし痛めつけられたら、思いっきり苦悶の表情を浮かべてやるといい。
With the imposter Canon's arms, a strangely shining curve extended, he planned to tear Shannon apart with it. With a single stroke, he would attack Shannon who hadn't prepared her heart and...
許さない。一度ならず二度までも死者を汚すなんて許せない。
ほざくな。弟に殺されろよ、ショーノン。きっといい夢が見られるぜ。
The imposter Canon certainly seemed to lunge at Shannon, drawing several purple curves, but when he flew at her, though some kind of invisible wall had been placed in front of her. And the wall repelled the imposter, leaving a bright red ripple on its surface. No, it didn't repel him, it smashed him. It knocked him back, turning into a golden dust and little bits scattering him. That foolish furniture, who had taken Canon's form and even disgraced the honour after death, broke into countless golden butterflies. And those butterflies sacrificed themselves. Those butterflies themselves broke into pieces, and those pieces were broken to pieces, until they were no longer butterflies, but a golden splash that faded away.
シャノン。
ジョージさんはそこから動かないでください。中心軸をずらしたくない。
これは驚いた。虫一匹殺せない面をしてこれだけの力を見せたか。なるほど、霊境がそなたに力を貸しているというのか。しかしその霊境の本当の力を引き出すには準備も時間も足りないな。そのどちらもわらわは与えはせぬ。
The spirit mirror George gripped had let out a divine glow, displaying the strength powerful enough not to submit to the wicked forces. Their glow was no match for witch's sinister nature.
から家具は怖い。予期せずしてタンスの角にぶつける足の小指のような気持ちよ。これだから家具は怖い。家具が。家具。
私は家具じゃない。そしてあなたを今はとても哀れに思う。
何？ほう。1000年の魔女に100年も至らぬ家具が今何と言ったか。
あなたはとても哀れな人。愛し合う二人に未練がないわけがない。でもあなたの期待するような未練はかけらほどもない。
語るか。ジョージと結ばれたくてわらわの靴を舐めた日々を忘れてわらわにそれを語るか。
愛に生き泥濘を這うが人間。それを嘲笑い見下しているつもりであなたはそれにはるかに劣る。私は今こそあなたを哀れに思う。愛し合う二人にとって添い遂げることにどれほどの意味が。意味はある。きっとある。でもそれはあなたの言うこととは全然違う。もっと新鮮にして、あなたごとき邪悪が口にする資格もないほどの新鮮な意味がある。だから私にはすでに何の未練もない。ジョージさんと愛を誓い合った。その証として指輪を受け取った。それで永遠の誓いは完了した。あなたがどんな邪悪な魔法や悪意で私たちを災難だとしても永遠は汚さない。
Isn't Beatrice a witch of eternity?
綺麗事を詩人のように語るな。愛は情欲なんだよ。少女漫画みたく綺麗事ばっかりで語れねえんだよ。男どもはお前の匂いに惹かれて群がるウジバエどもなんだよ。そんなこともその年でまだ理解できねえのかよ。お前は失望するぜ。その後ろのメガネ男のどす黒い欲望一度でも覗いちまったらがっかり愕然唖然呆然全然ダメだぜショーノン。ああ、もういいや、語るな家具が。この家具何様のつもりだよ、語りやがって。愛なんて結局はど汚ねえ汚物をどう綺麗に見せようかって欺瞞なんだよ。そいつに気づいて人は大人になるんだろう。死ねよクズ。家具スクラップ。お前を汚らわしいウジ虫に変えてやるよ。それでもそのメガネがお前を愛するか試してやるよ。そいつの愛のどぎたねえ現実ってやつを教えてやるよ。死ねよガラクタが。てめえが愛を語るんじゃねえ。
I feel like you're projecting onto her, Beatrice. Do you have some issues you want to talk about? The invisible column of light with Shannon in the centre started to have bright red ripple drawn on all over it at once. The order is better westward to withstand the unseeable malice that tried to corrode it, laid on them from all directions.
なんだよそれは。抵抗してるつもりかよ。安っぽいんだよ、薄っぺらいんだよ。お前の綺麗事と同じなんだよ、見せかけだけの薄っぺら。見たくないものをベールで覆って隠してるだけなんだよ。まだわかんないのかよ。だから家具なんだよ、家具。ほら削られてるぜ。カリカリコリコリガリガリゴリゴリなんて薄くて情けないんだよ。 お前のその薄っぺらな抵抗に比べたら、パルミチャーノレッチアーノの方がまだ削るのに苦労がいるぜ。
The golden windstorm that covered the room gradually began to shave the walls of the column that protected Shannon and George. Bright red ripples frantically drew a resisting pattern, but that was just turned into a red wall of despair that began to wrap around the two of them up.
ジョージさん、ごめんなさい。やはり私には無理でした。
ありがとう。君は僕のために戦ってくれた。それだけで嬉しいよ。
The round wall that had been protected them was assaulted and covered with a curve of bright red ripples that seemed to scream, and began to suck the two of them up instead. Shannon grasped George's hand behind her, but George hugged her shoulders just as strongly.
なんだい。
最後に愛してるって聞かせてください。
ああ、さよ。僕は君を永遠に。
3 hours remain.